Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, here discussing all things pest. And I'm going to be talking about the mistake of hiring, the compassion of firing, and why I won't do SMB consulting. For those of you who don't know what SMB consulting is, it's small and mid-sized business consulting. And this is a lot of people telling me, hey, Frank, why don't you do like a boot camp? Well, with me, it's going to be more like a boot in the ass camp. I don't have the patience to do consulting work. I really don't. I'm more of an operations guy in the field. I would be better at doing, training in the field with people and doing that than doing consulting. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the patience for a business owner to call me, tell me I have a business problem I need to solve. I have all these issues, and I do an evaluation of your business, do an evaluation of what's going on, and realize that you're the problem. And that is the majority of the issue with small business consulting, is that you realize that the biggest problem with the owner is the owner. And you have to deal with that, and you have to become a therapist. You have to become /pastor. You have to become somebody that they call to tell you what all the problems are that they're facing. And when you tell them what they need to do to solve it, you're going to get a row of yeah buts. And yeah, but you don't understand. Yeah, but I can't. Yeah, but that costs too much. Yeah, but I'm not ready for that right now. Yeah, I understand what you're telling me, but the reality is, here's the hardcore reality. I don't want to change. I want to run a business the way I want to run it, however I feel it's supposed to be run, and not realize that you don't have the business experience to grow that business, to take it to the real next level. And to create the systems and create the culture that is required, because in your mind, you're thinking that the technical is all that's really needed. That becoming a great technician is the reality to business. And the reality is that becoming a great technician is not what most business needs. I have a system that I developed that I can take a 18-year-old, 24-year-old, a man, woman, it doesn't matter. And if I find the right person based upon my hiring process of determining who the right person is and take them through a 40-hour training, the reality is that within 40 hours, I can have them 80% competent, as better than the average guy who's been at a large company for 2 years and hasn't been taught anything. And I can get them to solve every roach problem, every ant problem, every flea and tick problem, every silverfish problem, which is 99% of the calls we get. I don't need them to be an entomological expert, because that is my role. And when they come across a problem they can't solve, or they have come across a pest they can't ID, a simple picture, send it to me. I can tell you what that is and tell you how to solve it in 5 minutes. There isn't anything that I can't teach a technician to be 95%. As a matter of fact, I'll put a technician out on the road after 40 hours of my training and going through my system. But it's also part of the hiring, recruiting, onboarding of getting the right person in that seat. And if I can get the right person in that seat, and determining that is the hard part. And I've made that easy through a system, but I can take somebody at 40 hours, and my callbacks will never go above the 6% standard that we have. We have a 5% standard, but even a new person, when I see the uptick in the calls, I know they're not following the system. And what I really don't need is anybody with 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience or 15 years of experience. As a matter of fact, I need somebody with no experience to do this job, because it's a clean slate. I can train the right person. And as long as I can get a person that's patient, that's loving, that cares, and that is willing to follow a process step by step, because I've developed what is known as a franchise system that is turnkey. Because a franchisee doesn't have 6 months or 9 months what most people would say in a group. Oh, I won't let a guy loose on his own for at least 6 months to a year. You'll never make any money. What most people do is they get desperate and they hire the warm body that just fell up against them and put them in a truck with no real system and then wonder why the guy's failing and why they're failing and why they can't hire. And these are the issues that when somebody asks me, what do I need to know to start up a business? What you should be focusing on for 6 months to a year is actually developing your system. Because you have the time to do that before you start up. The time to do that is not after you started up, after you've acquired the first $150,000 worth of business, and then say, I need to develop a system. You should be focused on developing the system before you start up your company. And the problem is you're asking all the wrong people. I see the advice a lot of people give in groups. Some of it is good. I can tell who owns an actual business that has multiple employees and has gone through all these headaches that I'm talking about, and who's never done it in their life. And all they're giving advice on, if you notice, 90% of the conversations in group is, I can't believe that somebody after 10 years of being in this business still asking what the right product to use is for such a problem. You see, and that's where everybody's missing it. That the average pest control guy has never built an actual business. They talk about what they hear. They're parroting. But they don't have the actual experience of going through it and experiencing the pain of growing a business. And if you notice, my podcast for the last 6 years since I've been doing this was focused a lot on technical training. And the next 5 to 6 years is going to be focused on business growth and technical training. Because I think the most thing that people need, the thing that people need most, is how to actually grow. Because most people, the number one excuse that people give for not growing a business is, I don't want the employee nightmares. And the reason that you don't want the employee headaches is because you don't know how to manage the employee headaches. You don't have the patience for the employee headaches. You see employees as a problem, where I see employees as a solution to me living the lifestyle and building the business that I want. And the reason is you don't know how to hire, you don't know how to fire, you don't know how to create systems. You're shooting from the hip constantly. I told you this is going to be more of a boot in the ass rant than a actual podcast that makes you feel good, fluffy inside. And how am I going to solve all these little problems that I have in my life? No, I'm not that kind of guy. As a matter of fact, most people think this is a persona, that this is, me being on the podcast. But when you actually meet me and you actually talk to me on the phone, you find out it's not a persona, that this is who I am. And this is why I personally do not believe I can do small business consulting. I don't have the patience to sit there, tell you what you need to do, and you give me excuses of why you can't do it. So the number one thing about making the hiring mistake is that you got to own up to the fact that you made that mistake. The hiring mistake was all yours. No, but you don't understand. The guy, lied to me, and he basically lied on his resume and lied in the interview and lied. And guess what? 99.9% of people that are getting interviewed right now are going to lie. That resume is highly embellished. The words they use are carefully crafted. Words they can't even spell, pronounce, or even back up. And what you got to get past is a system that cuts through all the BS that you're getting and gets the real candidate. And what happens is you have to discourage the wrong people, and you don't want to discourage, because what you want is to feel good and fluffy inside about putting out an ad for free on Indeed and getting 100 resumes and saying, look at the response we have. Yes. And most of it is dirt. And what you're looking for is a diamond in the rough. And you have to identify the diamond. The problem is you need a system that can sift through 10,000 pounds of dirt and come up with a diamond on the other end. And that's what you don't have. That's what the average guy that goes into business, becomes a technician, works for 2 to 5 years, building it up to 150,000 to 250,000 a year. And by about 150,000, he realizes he can't do the accounting. He can't do the sales. He can't do the marketing. He can't do the service and not work 12 to 14 hours a day. He needs somebody. And he has no idea where he's going to start to hire that person. And the problem is the people he's listening to in groups only do discourage him and say, this is why I don't go and hire people, because it's a nightmare. No, the reality is because you don't know how to do it. And you thought that being a technician is all there is. And then now you're hit with the reality of what you're looking for. I would venture to say that 90% or more of solo operators that decided to go from being a technician at a company to becoming a solo operator, opening up their business, you're not an entrepreneur. Understand that. You're self-employed. I mean, this is going to sound harsh, but this is what 20, 30 years ago was called being self-employed. Today, the term entrepreneur is very sexy. The problem is very few people are actually entrepreneurs. Just because you left your job because nobody would pay you more, you got fed up of working 12 to 14 hours a day, and then, producing, somewhere between, $24,000 and $36,000 a month worth of revenue for a company to get paid $5,000 and make $50K a year. And then all of a sudden you want to slow down and say, I don't want to work the 12 hour. I want to work 8 to 10 hours, but I want to make the 50,000. You go try to work for another company and realize nobody's going to pay you 50,000 a year for half the production. That's where the fallacy. This is why I don't want to hire people that making $50,000 a year with 10 years of experience in pest control, because psychologically they can't make that shift in their heart to say, I got to reduce my lifestyle. I got to be willing to make 36 to 40. I'm not going to make that 55. I'm not going to make the $24 an hour on half the production because I want to reduce my lifestyle because I'm burned out. And now you're 40 something to 50-year-old and you don't want to retrain on a new system. You don't want to become an IPM specialist. You don't want to become an AIG type of technician. You want to continue to do homes and spray and pray. And you think you're going to make $50,000 a year at a small company who's starting up or is small. Then you're saying, well, I want, equity. If you give me equity as a small business owner, I hear that 1,000 times. I said, dude, you bring nothing to the table except 15 years or 10 years of experience, which you're not willing to upgrade your skills. You're stubborn as hell, and you never were able to do anything more because you couldn't move up at that company. And you want to come into my company and basically tell me how you're going to run this business with no experience. This is the fallacy that people fall into in their mind when they're technicians and they're good technicians, thinking that's what it takes is to be a good technician. So you're not an entrepreneur. This is where the industry is right now, with people that have been in it for 1 to 3 years working for these large brands who get burned out, and then they want to run from it and go somewhere else. And basically what they find out is they're unhireable because you've been running 12 to 20 stops a day half-assed. And now to get out of that mindset, and I've hired at least 3 already, and it has proven me right that they can't change, that they can't slow down, that they can't think, that they don't want to retrain, they don't want to sit there and learn entomology. They want to figure out how they do their route as fast as they can to go home. This is 90+%. So finding that 1% that is actually retrainable, that is willing to, instead of making 50,000, making 36,000. Because in a system where you create a system, you don't need the high experienced guy. You need a person that can follow a system. That's what franchise owners aren't entrepreneurs. They're good managers. And what franchise systems need are good managers. They don't need entrepreneurs. The entrepreneur already developed the system, invested the time. My system, I've invested to the tune of about $350, close to $500,000 over the last 9 years to develop the system. so that I can have an infrastructure, so that I can have a system to hire, so that I can grow very well, very comfortably without killing myself. People ask me all the time, I don't know how you have time to do a podcast. I don't know how time to do this, to do that. The reason I have the time is because I have systems for everything. There's a system now that needs to be developed with this generation on how to actually clean out a truck every week. How to properly clean a truck. I mean, you got to have everything in its place to teach them. How do you clean a B&G? How do you clean out your equipment? How do you service your equipment? You have to have a video on everything. And that takes time and energy and patience, which is what 90% of people don't have. So your first instinct is going to be, I'm just going to hire a service technician with experience. And by the time you get into your third one, what you're going to find is you have a motley crew. And then I'll hear things like, oh, I would like to implement this in my company. And I would like to implement IPM and I would like to go eco-friendly. It's just that I can't get my guys to do this. You don't understand. These guys are running me ragged. I can't get them to do what I want. I wouldn't say, my simple answer is going to be, your monkey, your zoo. I don't have the time to be your consultant. Because you made this mess yourself because you wouldn't listen. You listened to everybody that told you what to do that didn't actually grow a business. And what you wanted is just add water text because you don't have a hiring system. You don't have a training system. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a crappy culture in your company that later is going to be so hard for you to undo that you literally got to scale back, fire everybody, lose some business, stop growing so that you can then build it. And you're going to be up against the wall and you're going to be tired, exhausted. And say, screw it. I'm just going to go back to being a solo operator. And that's what a lot of you do. You retreat. This is the harsh reality. Because now what you're going to end up doing is managing through abdication versus managing through delegation. Where you hire a guy and you just dump everything on him. You say, you're going to do the wildlife and you're going to do insect control and you're going to do rodent trapping and you're going to do animal trapping and and you start dumping everything on them and you don't even evaluate whether these guys know what they're doing. Because now you're growing so much that you don't have time to train. You don't have time to educate your people. You don't have time to invest in them. Because the only thing you got now is you're growing at such a pace that you can't keep up. And you're going to end up with a bunch of guys that aren't even doing it, and your callbacks are going to come through the roof. When you're at 20, I know companies that are 15, 20%. I've been saying this forever. Why I won't go to a quarterly service in South Florida? Because I know that I'm going to end up with 15 to 20% callback rates. So we focus on being the best eco-friendly company, not the fastest growing, not the biggest. We're still growing. Now I just hired a marketing company to do our marketing because I can no longer do it. So I'm taking off and I'm delegating, but that took me a long time, about 2 years of looking online and looking at in the groups of who's being recommended. And a name kept popping up and kept popping up and kept popping up. And I said, let me give them a shot and see what happens. And, you know, they're great people. So far, the conversations have been really great. Invested in me about 4 hours of just trying to figure out and understand my business. More than any other company ever did. The sad part is when I talk to a lot of these SEO companies, I know more about SEO than they do, which is scary. So now you need to slow down. Now is the time when you have nothing to build an infrastructure. Here's what I'll talk to new owners that are getting ready to hire and says, what do I need to do to hire the person? I said, you're going to have to invest about $2,000 initially in software and in programs and in things and then you have to go through the process of start hiring 3 to 6 months before you need it. They're under the impression that they're going to go and write an ad on Indeed and all of these qualified candidates are going to fall on their lap. I got news for you. You're going to have nothing but crap fall on your lap. Because everybody and their grandma, the moment you put out an ad for $13 to $16 an hour, which is what realistically you're going to be able to pay for a new technician. Some of you guys want to pay like $10 an hour. You're crazy if you think anybody's going to come work for you that's worth anything. For $10. I'm having these conversations, guys, every day with people all over the world. And I'm telling you, you're delusional to think you're going to find a guy at Home Depot who works in the pesticide section for $10 an hour, and that guy is going to equate to coming to work for you and taking care of your clients and running a route, managing chemical, managing the territory for $12 an hour that you're offering. And you're saying, but I can't pay a guy 15 to 16. He's going to make more than I make. I said, that's the reality, because you're competing against other markets where a guy who has the technical ability can more easily go work and be an electrical technician, hooking up cables and modems for the same $16 an hour. Why the hell would he work around chemicals out in the sun, dealing with the type of customer that pest control is, where a lot of people are just not happy, they have unrealistic expectations? Come work for you with no benefits, no insurance, no vacation, no personal days off, no culture, and you want this brilliant technician to come work for you. I said, you're freaking delusional. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get that level of technician that you are. You got to get over that. It isn't going to happen. And when I tell them what they got to spend to hire a person, they're like, oh, but I can't spend $500 to hire a new Really? Really? You can't spend $500 a month, invest $2,500 in software to do all types of employee assessments for a year and understand that you got a 50-50 chance still when you do all this, but it's better than your 90-10 plan that you're going to lose every time? And that you're going to have to probably go through hundreds and hundreds of resumes. I don't have the time to go through hundreds of resumes. But you got to have a system to weed things out. I've got an actual podcast I did on this, on how to weed things out, where I only worry about the 1% that follows the program, follows my system, and that's the only one I interview. And it's 1 out of 1,000 right now in a big city like Miami. You're going to find out that whatever you think you know about recruiting and hiring is completely BS. It isn't real. That it's everybody's blowing smoke up your tailpipe. It's darn hard. The hardest thing you'll ever have to do is recruit. And the moment what you got to get out of your head is that you're a pest control company. I know that's going to be hard for you, but you got to get that out of your head. The moment you decide to grow, you're not a pest control company. Pest control is a commodity. What you're selling is other people's skills to your clients. You're in the training business. You're in the HR business. You're going to be in the marketing business. You're going to be in the fleet management business. You're going to be in the inventory business. The commodity, the pest control. If it isn't built around a culture of caring and love and people really caring about their work, is a commodity. It's the culture that's going to bring the people in. It's your brand. And brand is the experience that people will have with your company. Brand is the promise of an experience. What experience do they have with your company and your people? And unless you focus on the people first, and you focus on the process and the business model, and the program and the protocols and the procedures will run the business for you, not the other way around. I highly recommend the book, The E-Myth Revisited, for everyone who thinks they want to be in business or who is a technician and says, I can't grow, I can't find people, I can't. It's going to be that's one of those kick in the teeth books of a reality of what you really need and why you're failing. I would also recommend all of the books by Mike Michalowicz. He look up Clockworks, Profit First. By the way, get every single book he has. If you want to start, grow, and grow a business, you need to be reading those books. And be preferably before you decide you're going to get into the business, or the moment you decide within 6 months to a year that you want to grow, then you need to read those books, because that's the reality. So you don't want to spend $500 on Indeed ads and you think the free ads are going to produce. They can. What I do is I create one for every zip code that is out there. So I ended up with 66 ads just in one county alone that I had to create in order to generate the amount of traffic that I needed in the sales funnel, because it's just like marketing. You need to create a funnel and then weed through the funnel those that are actual fit for me, for what I want to do. I had to buy the software. I had to do the assessments. I had to do video interviews, but I only invested in 10 people. And then one I hire. And even though sometimes my gut tells me, don't hire that person, I'll hire him because I still need the person. And it always turns out that the data showed that they weren't going to make it, and the data was right. So now the system is designed to weed everything out. Everything is about the system. My protocols on how I run my business, my system. This is what a franchise system is. Everything the system runs, all you need is people that are willing to follow the system. If they can't follow the system, they can't work for you. It's that simple. These are the same tests that franchisees are given before they are even discussed with, because they might not be a fit for the organization. And now they know, saying, yeah, this guy's never, we know what the profile looks like. This guy's never going to work as a franchisee. So the other thing you'll do is says, well, I can't I don't have $2,000. Then you can't enter the game because you're going to fail. You got to be, you're telling me that you're spending 10% on marketing, which is $2,500 a month, $2,000 a month by that time, $1,500 to $2,500 a month in marketing and advertising. And you're going to hand over a truck, your clientele, your reputation, everything that you work to build up, you're going to turn it over a guy, and you won't invest $2,000 to find the right guy. You won't wait 3 to 6 months. You're behaving sometimes. What I see people is behaving like they just got separated from because their wife cheated on them, dumped them, and they find themselves alone and they need a warm body, and they'll sleep with whoever comes their way because they're just hot and horny. And this is how most people are behaving when hiring. I just need somebody. I just need somebody. I just need somebody. Anybody. So I said, well, why don't you hire a professional recruiter? A professional headhunter is going to charge you 10% of the first year's salary on average for low skill labor, which is what pest control is. It's really low skill labor. It's not like high tech. So you're going to pay $2,700 to $3,700, 50% up front, 50% when they deliver a candidate and you hire them. And you're saying, yeah, but I can't pay that. See, the problem is you keep saying you can't. No, the reality is you don't want to. There's a cost of doing business, and that is the reality of the cost of doing business. So you're penny wise and pound foolish. Because you're saying, I'm not going to pay a guy more than I'm making. I'm not going to pay this. I'm not going to pay that. Well, if you can't, you can't. Then you can't play. That's the game. That is the game of growing. This is why I tell you I'm mostly an insultant more than a consultant. Because I'm telling you what the average consultant isn't going to tell you. He's going to string you along for 6 months, telling you all the things you want to hear sometimes, the things you need to hear, but you're not going to do anything about it. You're still going to say, yeah, but. This is why most people don't hire a consultant, because they say, well, I'm not going to pay a guy $600 to $3,000 a month to tell me what I already know. No, the reality is he's going to tell you what you want to know, need to know, and you're not going to do it at the end of the day. So when you make that bad hire, the most compassionate thing that you can do, the moment you realize that that person is not going to work out, is to fire them. And this is something you're not prepared to do, a lot of people. But that is the most compassionate thing you're going to do, because here's the reality. You made that hiring decision. You made the hiring mistake. You didn't have an onboarding system. You didn't have a recruiting system, a vetting system, a hiring, onboarding, training program, which includes education, hands-on training, field evaluation, compensation, retention. You don't have any of that. And that person's coming in, and you realize that 60% of people will make their decision whether to stay with that company or not during the onboarding process, especially if we're talking about 20-something to 30-something millennials. The moment you don't have an organized training program, the moment you're winging it, and the moment you're making them trying to figure you out and think what's in your head, you lost them at that point. The best thing you can do is, when you realize that they're not going to grow, they're not going to stay with you, is to fire them. Here's the problem. But then I have to go through this entire process again, and I don't want to. So you rather stay with that woman or that man that's totally useless, isn't going to satisfy you, you're not in love with, but it's more convenient than having to go back out into the dating scene. I'm blunt, I'm honest, I'm transparent, I'm candid to a fault. But I'd rather tell you this, let you get mad, insulted, and not lose your life savings, not go in and fail, and I don't have anything to gain or lose by you listening to me or not. I got nothing vested. The problem with me is I can't become a consultant because I get emotionally vested. I don't know how to be detached. In this podcast, I can be more detached. When I go into your business, when I talk to you personally, I get involved with the person, and then I feel for the person, and I feel sad for the person, and I get emotionally involved. I don't know how to be a therapist. I don't know how to be a doctor who decides that's a patient I'm treating, and I can't get emotionally involved. So the problem that you have is that nobody will teach you this for free. The courses that teach this are going to cost you $2,000 to $3,000 to get a course or to talk to a consultant, because this is the single most hardest thing to do, and everybody knows it, that this requires skill, more than learning pest control, more than learning how to manage a business. This is why ads for employment have never been cheap. People realize how hard this is. I remember in a newspaper, they wanted $400 for a 1-week ad, for me to run a one ad. This is a skill and a science and an art that has to be developed. Hiring is guessing, firing is knowing. The moment you hire somebody, even with my system, you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. You still have to put that person in the field. You still have to evaluate them. But it's 50-50 versus 90-10 that you have now winging it. And then the moment that you know that person is not going to work out, you have to be able to fire them immediately. Let them move on and have compassion for them, that you're going to hold them back by keeping them because they're never going to thrive in your environment. And letting them go to an environment which they can be happy in. The best companies that I know that do this will have they will have basically a bonus if you quit. They will give you a bonus if you quit. Why? They'll put out a bonus out there after your first week and say, we're going to give you a $2,000 bonus for you to quit. And if they'll find that 60% of the people take it. Why? They realize they're not a fit there. They need the job, and they're going to stay in that job until they find another one. But they already realized that job wasn't for them. And what you did was, by giving them a 2-week severance, paying them 2 weeks, doing the right thing by them because you made the hiring mistake, that you're going to end up with the high quality people, the polished diamonds, or diamonds you can polish. So this is the reality, guys, of what I'm talking about. And a lot of you will tell me, well, that's not true. I know this, I know that. Well, do me a favor. When you actually do it, and you do it successfully, come and give me a call and tell me about it. But in the meantime, if you haven't done it and you haven't done it successfully, it doesn't matter what you know. It's what you do that matters. So I hope this podcast is going to help you. It's going to help you grow. It's going to help you grow your business. But understand that when it comes to business knowledge and business consulting and the things that have to be done in a business, a lot of people don't have the stomach for it. They'll stay solo operators, self-employed. I'm wanting to grow a company. I'm wanting to grow a business. I'm just not willing to do it with how I see the industry doing it, the models they're using. The accounting models that I'm seeing, even from reputable accounting guys, telling me what I have to do to grow the business, what my profit margin needs to be. My profit margin needs to be whatever I'm happy with. I'm more focused on happiness and not having stress and being able to enjoy the things that I have. Be able to enjoy my life. I'm 50. A lot of people think, man, I thought you were 30 something. No, I'm 50. I've been doing sales since I was 16 for over 30 years. And I'm still doing it. I enjoy it. But I want to build a business that has a great culture, that people love to work here, that customers love because of our brand. I don't want to be on the PCT 100. That's not my goal. My goal is to build the best eco-friendly company that there is. Not the biggest, not the fastest growing, but the best one that we can be in the cities that we're in the markets that we're in, and be happy with that. Be content, not be envious of what somebody else is doing and how they're growing so much faster. You have no idea what somebody who's growing fast is going through. You have no idea what's in their heart, how they're basically a nervous wreck all the time. The grass is always greener on the other side until you actually have to mow it. And you still have to mow it. So understand that a lot of that glitters isn't gold. That not everything in life is about being the biggest. But there is a right way to do it, even if you just want to hire 5 people and do $1 million or do 600,000. And say, I'm going to stay at this. And you got to get the people that understand that you're not going to grow there. That no matter how long they work for you, they're never going to be a service manager. They're never going to be a branch manager. Because you're a family company and your kids are going to inherit the company. But you need to establish that stuff up front and not be afraid to put it out there. And be honest, transparent, candid with people about what you expect from them. And what they can expect, and if they're only with you. See, I don't have a problem with a guy being with me for 1 year and moving on right now. Or being with me for 2 years and moving on. Because I have a system that I can easily retrain somebody, hire and retrain. And I can have that system up and running and have maintenance techs up and running in 40 hours. And yes, it'll take me a month to 90 days to train a really good startup tech. But so what? That's the business. That's the system. I've gone to very simple systems, very simple things that we do. This is why I don't do wildlife, and I don't do termite, and I don't do a lot of things, because I can grow a very simple system that is profitable. The simpler I make it, the more profitable it becomes. And with processes that I have now with 2 to 3 employees is not going to be the same when I have 9, because of the laws of complexity. And look up the rule of 10, the rule of 3 and 10. It will open up your eyes. What you think is going to work when you have 3 won't work when you have 9, and it won't work when you have 28. You got to constantly be reinventing the system, retweaking it, modifying it to adapt to the business needs. So I hope this has been helpful to you. It's been a great pleasure to be back on the microphone after a long retreat, because I've been doing so many things that I've enjoyed doing, and I'm going to be doing more podcasts, but I'm going to be doing probably a Sunday podcast. I'm looking at that and being able to do something more on the spiritual side, on the biblical base side, for a Sunday podcast. So until next time, folks, have a pistacular day.